This is the situation in Australia. The government's backing Qantas and Virgin to keep our airlines flying domestic routes. Scott Morrison has mapped out a plan with 3 targets to allow restrictions to be eased within 4 weeks. We'll have more details on that shortly. The first overseas death linked to the Ruby Princess cruise ship has been recorded, a man from the United States. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian confirms the state is considering a rostered school return. Now, let's take a look at a state-by-state breakdown of the numbers. You can see here, this is the situation right across the country, and New South Wales is still leading the way. We can see that total figure really has somewhat held steady, but risen to 6,508, the death toll at 63. But most importantly, that recovered figure, 3,752, that is also steadily rising. Now, New South Wales has added another 29 cases there. Victoria has held on at 1,301. The ACT really holding steady there, 103. Tasmania shooting up with that cluster in the northwest. Queensland's tipped over the 1,000 mark. South Australia's really held steady in the 400s. It's WA that's edged ahead. They were on par for quite some time now. WA is at 503, and the Northern Territory also holding very steady there at 28. Let's have a look at the curve. This is what authorities are watching to see if those physical distancing measures are working. Now, the really important caveat here is that over that Easter long weekend, there weren't as many people going to get tested. There weren't as many GP clinics open. And so we are expecting to start seeing that number ticking up, including that additional more than 24 cases in New South Wales. But what we're seeing there is these numbers are incredibly low. Even from the 5th of April, 107 cases there, and it really hasn't gotten much higher, really holding around the same figures. And so that does have authorities quite optimistic. Let's check in on the coronavirus situation right around the world. You can see the UK has extended its lockdown for 3 weeks. More than 5 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the last week, taking the month's total to 22 million. That effectively wipes out a decade worth of job growth in the country. Singapore has again suffered its biggest jump in cases, continuing its second wave surge. Japan has declared a state of emergency. The EU has issued a heartfelt apology to Italy for letting it down at the beginning of the outbreak. Now, here's a breakdown of the numbers globally. This is a good comparison to see how different parts of the world are comparing on this figure. You can see that there have been 2 million cases right around the world, but crucially, 546,000 have recovered, but quite tragically as well, 145,000 deaths. If we look at the breakdown of numbers by continent, you can see some drastic differences in how this virus has spread. In Asia, you can see that the number of cases there lower than what we've seen in North America and Europe, but also that recovered figure is much higher. Of course, there are concerns about the veracity of reporting out of a number of those countries, including quite crucially China. North America, they're obviously still in their early stages, just 70,000 recovered, and quite alarmingly, 36,000 deaths. Europe has had 1 million cases. We've seen tick over that mark, but 275,000 recovered as well. So those are important figures to keep an eye on.